Welcome to the Communication Diva Podcast, episode 77. In this episode, Jenn interviews Pat Irwin on the subject of how to de-stress children. Strategies include performing random acts of kindness and breathing. Did you know that because we breathe automatically, we forget we're doing it, which for most people results in not breathing deeply or frequently enough? The resulting lack of oxygen and buildup of carbon dioxide and lactic acid produces a wide range of negative effects, including higher blood pressure, poorer digestion and balance, lower back pain, and increased stress, to name just a few. Doesn't it make you wonder how much better the world would be if we all just breathed a little more? Breathing. It's not just for the kiddies.
Welcome to the Communication Diva Podcast. This is Jenn Swanson, and I'm your host. And this is the podcast that hopes to help you deepen your relationships through better or improved communication skills in all different ways and all different areas. I like to interview interesting people to talk to you about communication, offer skills and practical hands-on tips, and hopefully give you a little bit of entertainment along the way. So thank you very much for taking the time to listen. The interview I'm about to bring you is with Patricia Irwin, and she is a Canadian author who started writing nonfiction self-help books about 10 years ago under the pen name of Indigo Irwin Kennedy. But now she's changed it, merged it into Patricia Irwin, and she has written books for adults. She's got one called The Wave Riders, which is about mental health and dealing with chronic sadness, changing your mood. She talks about mental health, depression, bipolar disorder. She also talks about happiness, success, diversity, and inclusion, and a number of other things. So she's got that book available, and you can find that all over the place. The book that I enjoyed looking at the most was her latest book, which is a children's book, and it's called Teach Me to Breathe, and it's about a little fish who forgets how to breathe. And so this is a story about a goldfish and his friends and how he learns how to slow down a little bit. So this is a beautifully made book. The colors are spectacular, and it's a great message. So anyway, I met Pat when I was doing a course, finishing my master practitioner certification in neuro-linguistic programming this summer, and found her very compelling and thought that it would be a great thing to invite her to Communication Diva and share her with you. So here is my interview with Pat Irwin. So here we are standing in a very sun-filled atrium, I guess you would call it, in Vancouver, and we're actually on Granville Island. And if any of you have been to Granville Island, it is a fantastic place for tourists to see some of the waterfront in Vancouver and to do some shopping. And so this is the location that we are in for the interview that I'm bringing you right now with Pat Irwin. And welcome, Pat.
Well, thank you, Jennifer. It's great to be here on Granville Island. And I think you forgot to mention sharing time with friends on Granville Island.
That's right. That's a wonderful thing. And the other thing I forgot to mention was eating on Granville Island.
That too. And just looking at the ocean. Isn't that beautiful? And my yacht keeps passing by.
Your yacht, yeah.
I'm waving. I'm waving.
Hoping it will come back and remember to pick you up. Exactly. Absolutely. So, Pat, you're going to be talking to us today a little bit about easy ways to de-stress children. But before we get into that, would you be able to give us a little bit of your story? What brought you to this kind of work, and what is the work that you're doing?
Well, I'm an author and a life coach, and I particularly work with high-performance teams and individuals. And part of what I observe when I'm working with high-performance individuals is that they're great at achieving, yet they are really having troubles with just being, just stopping, having that white space on the calendar. They don't know how to handle that. How do you find value when you are not producing?
Mm-hmm. I can relate to that, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. So what I started to do is I have written a book, as you know, for adults. And also what I found with adults is that when they're really, really achieving, they really don't want to stop. Mm. And even when they get exhausted and burn out, then they don't want to talk. Mm-hmm. So one of the things that I really focused on is, wouldn't it be magnificent to have a full generation of children as young as kindergarten or even before that, knowing how to de-stress themselves without actually knowing that they're doing that.
Mm. So in your life work, what is it that who are you working with? You're working with children, but are you working with adults as well?
I work with adults as well, yes. As much as I can, I want to work with prevention. And so I work with adults that are ready to hear, things like it's important to slow down, it's important to breathe, things like that. When they're ready, it works great because we can prevent the crossing the line, optimize mental health rather than crossing the line into mental illness. So that's really what I strive for, is if I can get the message of prevention into anywhere and anyone, I'm happy.
So you're an author, you've written books, and you're a coach as well, is that right?
Yes, I do. I wrote my first book probably 10 years ago now, and it was noticing a pattern really with a bit of adrenaline addiction almost, we could call it, in the sense of, and it all ties into the achieving, because, we start as a very young child to get, gold stars when we do something really well. Mm-hmm. And it's not that it's bad to give out gold stars, but we certainly want to say, you're valuable as you are, even without a gold star. Mm. And so those are the kind of messages that I want to bring forth now. Achieving is awesome. Mm-hmm. And so is reflection. Mm-hmm. So is the looking back, stopping for a minute, breathing yourself down to a calm state where you can see a different angle to what you're creating too, is really beneficial.
So who is it that you're working with?
Well, right now I've been working as a coach for UBC and other people to reach out for me from my book. And, it's really amazing because I've had people reach out from Hong Kong. I've had people reach out from the peak of their achievement. It's very difficult to not mention names, right? Mm-hmm. But, the people that reach out, they go, I, at the age of 23, accomplished more than most people would by the time they were 40. Mm. But at 25, they tried to kill themselves 3 times. See, so there's something wrong there. It's not that we're all getting depressed or something, but it's not like there's a virus going around called depression. What we're getting is there's not the balance there, and we're very used to going into the flight or fight response. I think it's time to honor the other side of that, which is the parasympathetic nervous system, which brings in the calmness and makes us maybe feel a little bit lower than our high energy. And so we sometimes calculate that and we look at that and interpret that as unproductive time. Mm. And then we start to get down on ourselves. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The UBC, just if you're not familiar with that, is the University of British Columbia. What brought you to this this point? You're here learning the NLP, the neuro-linguistic programming, and you've written a couple of books. Did you always want to help people when you were first thinking about a career?
I think my mother was bipolar, heavily bipolar. And so I will say I was graced with the opportunity to do a lot of observing of her patterns, and became a little bit intuitive as well because, some of it's about survival, right? So what I started to notice, I always wanted to help her and didn't get the opportunity before she died. And so that just kept on with me. And when I started to notice that some of the women and the men that were around me, the most creative, the most intelligent, witty, fun people were coming up to me and saying, you know what, I'm on medication for being depressed. And I started to look at another pattern. I started to see the pattern of high achievement, that where we just go on for too long. And all of a sudden we slip. And when we slip, we have an opportunity there to still love ourselves, but most of us don't. Most of us turn into ourselves and we say, you know, oh, obviously I'm not high achieving anymore. What's wrong with me? I can't stay on top of that. I can't keep doing that. And so we really turn that reflective state into ourselves. And then we dig at the hole deeper. So I think if we can teach children now to honor both sides of that, to learn how to breathe, to do things like that, that truly we could create a whole generation that maybe rarely falls into depression because they see it as something else. Yeah.
So your mom was the impetus for this. Did you write your book next or what?
You know, it took a long time of, you know, I started to observe even within myself because I was always a high achiever. I have 30 careers under my belt, and most of them long term. It's not like I tried one and left it, you know, some for 8 years, but I'd often do 2 at the same time. So I'd have lots to work with. And so I noticed the high achieving self, and I noticed the self that turned inward and started to loathe myself. And by seeing the other people and by seeing myself and understanding that, I discovered that if I didn't allow myself to go too high for too long, that I wouldn't fall so deep in the hole. So just that balancing motion of being able to just lower the adrenaline rush a little bit enabled me to stay away and out of depression. Yeah.
And so you wrote your first book 10 years ago, you said?
Yeah, it was about 10 years ago I wrote the first book. And at that time, I didn't have the skills of coaching. So I was helping people, you know, intuitively I could pick up because I was used to observing the pattern. So I could pick up on something and we could talk and we could have a conversation. We could, and often it was very great, you know, positive results. But I really felt I wanted to learn some more structure, techniques, and tools that would enable me to be way more efficient. And you know that old saying, do no harm. The more you know, the more you can support people without damaging, because there's so much that we can say that actually turns people backwards instead of forwards. Right?
And so your work that you're doing now is to do that forward moving work with people, and you're working with adults and with children. And tell us about your second book.
Well, the second book is called The Wave. It's actually the same title, The Wave Riders, and now it's called Riding the Creativity and Mood Spectrum, and it's much more about diversity now. Rather than about mental illness, it's now about diversity, because the more we know, the more we realize we all think differently. It's not just about, you know, ecology, and it's not just about cultural diversity, but it's about thinking diversity. So there's so many of us that just operate in a different way, and so we keep getting compared with what we call a normal brain, which of course we all know doesn't exist.
Right.
It's the diversity that makes us survive. And so really, when we can see ourselves as just different thinkers, a lot of mental illness starts to disappear, because it's not abnormal. It's not away from the norm. It's in the honoring of each individual and how they operate.
So this is a book that's available. Is it available
on Amazon?
On Amazon?
Yeah, it's available on Amazon, and it's also available, there's links on thewaveriders.com on my site.
And I'll put all links to all of these things on the communicationdiva.com website so that you can click through and find Pat quite easily if you're on the website. And you've written another book that is just delightful that I'd like you to talk about now, the little book about the fish.
So this book is called teachmetobreathe.com. And in this book, it's very colorful. And we have purposely put the illustrations all on one side so that children can try to determine what's going on in the picture first before we even start reading the words. And some of them are humorous. And in this book, children teach a goldfish how to breathe. So first of all, the goldfish, of course, is having way too much fun, playing night and day, and he just doesn't know how to slow down. So the children learn how to count to 4 to breathe in, to hold it in, and then to blow it out again. We didn't make it too complex for them. We want to keep it really simple and fun. And then they teach this goldfish. And of course, he makes mistakes. He holds it in his cheeks and he puffs up like a puffish. And then he holds it in too long and he turns blue and the children laugh. And then later we ask questions. We say, all of a sudden Jay is jumping up and down on the bed and he's tried jumping and running and the children yell out, Jay, try breathing instead.
And so this is aimed at what age group?
Well, it can be aimed at, even before they start to read,
Right.
But we're really thinking kindergarten, grade 1, grade 2. Now, the interesting part is that's what's happening with it is as the adults are reading to the children, the teenager in the room is hearing it. And the adults are getting it. And I'm getting a lot of comments as, wow, I didn't really realize that my child didn't know how to breathe.
Wow.
Yeah. The other part that really delighted me, which just sent shivers up my spine, was that one parent shared that their 3-year-old began teaching other 3-year-olds how to breathe. Oh, you're looking upset, just, breathe now. Here's how you do it. And they were also saying, the parents were saying that they were, they would talk to their whole family. If the family's upset or something's going on or they're just too excited, they say, what would Jay do? And so they would begin breathing. I was just fascinated by that. I never thought that children would start teaching other children. So it really delighted me.
That's quite a testimonial there. What's the name of the book?
The name of the book is exactly Teach Me to Breathe.
Teach Me to Breathe. And that's also available on Amazon, and you have a website?
You know what? That one is not available on Amazon because I went to put it on there and the quality was not the same. I had it printed with a really high-quality printer, and those illustrations pop out, and that's what was so important. So it's available on the website. It has its own website, teachmetobreathe.com.
Okay, and we'll put that link there as well. So and I've seen that book, and it is a beautiful book, and the pages are really shiny, and I'm looking forward to getting some copies of that book whenever I have a little person to buy something for. So here's, Pat has prepared a list of things for you that you can share with other people if you don't happen to have a child in your life, but you might have some people who have children in your life. And these are 5 ways to de-stress or help a child to de-stress themselves.
It works for adults too. It's just an interesting thought that we so often reach out for something external and difficult or complex in order to solve our stress in life. And Wayne Dyer shared this one time, and he said an act of kindness, a random act of kindness, not only does the person who receives the act of kindness get a boost of serotonin, which is our happy chemicals, we'll call them, and also a boost to our immune system. So the person receiving the act of kindness gets both of those. So does the person who observes it. So if your child observes you doing a random act of kindness, they will get a serotonin boost and they will get a boost to their immune system. So doing it and observing it and receiving it. So the first prescription is go out and do something kind.
So acts of kindness is our number 1 tip to help children and everyone else, it sounds like.
It does. Anyone who sees it, observes it, gets that little boost. So go out and be greedy with it.
And I've seen that in action, and it's quite amazing. We were pulling into a parking spot in a place that it was quite expensive, apparently, to park. We were on our way to a play, and a woman hopped out of her vehicle, and she said, "If you'd like to take my spot," she says, "it's really expensive to park here." And she gave us a ticket she had paid $14 for, and we were able to enjoy our play for the evening at less expense. And I thought that was really kind.
It is. And so not only that, she gave you an extra gift, didn't she? She boosted your immune system and gave you some extra happy chemicals.
Yeah.
So another interesting study is that when we do something with our hands in particular for survival, so maybe you're planting a garden, you're raising tomatoes, you're whatever it is that your mind thinks of as survival, for your survival might be cooking dinner, you can get a boost of serotonin again. So involving children, and it's in particular has to do with the hands.
So this is number 2.
Yeah, number 2.
Doing something with your hands.
For survival.
For survival, that's the key, is it?
Yeah, and the hands. They're very tied. So now that we've automated everything, we've lost a little bit of that. So there was a study done that really showed that connection, the farmers out in the field. But we can do it even in our apartments, anything that is for survival. Who thought that laundry would make you happy?
Or washing dishes or scrubbing toilets.
So now it's just, honey dear, just scrub that toilet for me. I just want to make you happy.
I can see all sorts of applications for that one. All right, so number 1 is an act of kindness. Number 2 is doing something with your hands. So that your brain thinks is an act of survival. And I can see that children love to help in the kitchen most of the time. It's so colorful. There's so much to taste, so much to do, and it can be lots of fun if you invite them into that environment. So
imagine saying to them that this that we're doing benefits the survival of our tribe. That they truly get a sense of that understanding.
Okay, so what's number 3?
So number 3 is another study that just showed if you can give your children time to go to the playground before school, which is interesting because we always take them after school, but if you could have them run and scream and get all that energy out before, it's like priming them for learning.
Oh.
And there's even been treadmills brought into the classroom now, where they're running on treadmills and doing math at the same time. So this reduces the stress. It gets the energy out. They don't have to be locked into their seats for the whole entire time. And it really, really primes the brain for learning. So what they found with that is they can start to reduce the use of Ritalin.
The use of Ritalin.
Ritalin,
okay.
Right? So they don't have to medicate them as much now because because they're just getting that boost of and exercise itself gives you a boost of serotonin, but they're also able to release some of that pent-up energy. And this is a direct opposite trend to parents who have been charged with not providing education because they refuse to put their child on Ritalin. And now doctors are saying that, geez, they know that at 18 months they can put children on antipsychotic medication, but they'll at the same time admit that they don't really know if the antipsychotic medication works or if it benefits them. And on top of that, they stack the medication. So one on top of another without even having one, wear out. So I'm not against medication when it's needed. I believe sometimes it is needed, but I think, couldn't we just run and scream and try that first?
Well, and I heard a psychologist speaking. It was out at the University of BC, actually, about a year and a half ago, and she was telling us that she is writing prescriptions that she calls playground prescriptions because so many children are not being taken out to run and scream and play, and that she actually has to prescribe an hour a day to these parents, which I find so utterly sad that that has to be now built in because we overprogram children so often and don't let them just explore and learn and be creative on their own. There has to be, and now it's expected. What are we going to do now? Even our kids, it's okay. What's the plan today? What are we doing? Almost like how are we going to be entertained today? And I find that what have we created here?
And imagine if you could actually say to your children, how will we honor our white space today?
White space. Say more about that.
White space, I see it as my calendar. When I look at my calendar, it's awfully colorful and very full. So white space to me is actually physically white space on the calendar, but it could also be white space in your mind where you clear out all other thoughts and all other things that are trying to get your attention. And white space at home. This is a space where we can be together. I understand how hard this will be in the beginning, right? But if you start very, very young, you can start. This is our white space.
So is this number 4?
No, it's an extra.
This is an extra bonus. White space as bonus. I need more white space. I tell you, if you looked at my calendar, it would be horrifying. Okay, so then what's number 4, Pat?
Okay, number 4 is an invitation to parents to talk to their schools. In the States, there's a new kind of PE out, which really honors children. It is not about, they still do learn sports, but it's not really about sports.
PE is physical education.
Physical education. And what they do with this, they're actually calling it the new PE. It does start before school. It starts about half an hour. But the big thing is that they give each child a heart monitor to wear on their wrist, and the child goes out and becomes the best they can be. They learn lifelong fitness as opposed to, here's a sport you may never play for the rest of your life. And when they're waiting for sports, they're not getting that exercise. So this is a little bit different mindset, and it's proving that these guys are getting top marks because they do it before school. They come in, like I said, they prime the brain again. But the most important thing to me is that you get an A in this class if you have bettered yourself. You know, you don't get an A, you don't get a D because you weren't as good as, you know, John over there who can play great sports, right? So that de-stresses children right there.
Well, sure it does, because I know that I've heard kids say, oh, I'm no good at sports, I'm not athletic, I don't have it in my genes, you know, and the sort of defeat that you hear when they say that, even if they have different interests than being active. But it, you know, all the reports say that we need to be exercising regularly, and it's great that it's starting so young.
And imagine knowing for all of your life how to have a good fitness program for yourself. Yeah. Because they basically say, I don't care what you do, but just go out there and get your heart rate to this number.
Yeah.
Right?
So jumping around on a playground would just, hopscotch would do it.
Yeah, anything at all. Just keep your heart rate at this for this many minutes, right? Yeah. And if you showed an effort in your heart rate, and it logs it right on the heart monitor. Wow. So if it shows that that's how you get an A. Okay. So imagine carrying that through the rest of your life. You're not judged by somebody else. You're not judged because you are the last person jogging around the block. Right? I mean, how does a child carry throughout the rest of their life? And you know, there's no warm-up to those jogs around the block. It's basically, it might be a few-minute warm-up and out you go. Well, we don't do that as adults. We don't send adults out to jog around the block if they're out of shape. Right. So it just seems to be a really degrading experience for many kids. And wouldn't it be great to just have them embrace that fitness that they can do, that they can accomplish, that they can feel good about it. And the exercise again, more serotonin, right? Yahoo!
All right, so we have an act of kindness. We have doing something. That's number 1. We have doing something with your hands that is your brain thinks is survival. That's number 2. Number 3 is to exercise, run, and scream before class. Number 4 is the new concept of physical education, where it's not about a competition. It's about bettering yourself, and it's about learning a lifelong exercise. What would you call that? A lifelong exercise?
Yeah. Fitness plan. Fitness plan for life. A fitness plan for life. And very personalized. This is how I particularly plan. You know, so as they grow to be, you know, my age, they wouldn't be going, well, okay, how can I find something that makes me want to be fit? Right? It would be so ingrained in them that would be just part of their life.
And first thing in the morning, too.
Yes, yes. Yeah, they really are showing that, especially it's exercise, not only before the morning, but before the difficult classes like math. Right? And if you can incorporate it, you know, jumping rope at the same time as doing math, they found that these kids could not only learn, but they could sit in the chair and enjoy learning. So that's an incredible change.
I know some of my podcasting colleagues have shown us videos of their workspaces, and several of them have installed things like treadmills and in front of their desks, their computers, and so they've raised everything up. And it's fabulous. So they can stand there and do their, brain work while moving their bodies physically. And I think, wow, that's a really good idea too.
Yeah, there definitely are now desks that you can buy that you can be standing at your desk. The big question that keeps going through my mind is, why are we sitting?
Yeah.
Like, why are we sitting in classes? Why are we sitting in our office? Why are we, we can't have a business conversation and walk at the same time.
Yeah.
As,
Have your meeting on the beach.
Exactly. Hey, I'd go to that school.
All right. So what's number 5?
So number 5 is, of course, the book, right?
Yeah.
Number 5 is breathing.
Okay.
We all do it, but we just maybe don't know how powerful it is. That, when I talked earlier about that powerful hit we get of adrenaline, we're going to Disneyland. Let's think of kids. We're going to Disneyland, okay? Or Christmas morning. The children get up, and the first thing they get is a hit of adrenaline. Yahoo! My theory is we spend most of our life now looking for that hit of adrenaline. And we might get it through achievement. We might get it through, shopping. We might get it through many different ways, learning, work addiction, whatever it is. I believe that's the birthplace of addiction. And so if we can reach our children and just say, okay, I understand that you're, at a high level of excitement, but how do we bring that down a little bit? And breathing is the key, because when we get excited, we get adrenaline. It's all part of the fight or flight response in our bodies. The breathing is the body's natural way to bring in the parasympathetic nervous system, and it allows us just to we're still excited, but we're not hyper, right? And it allows us to bring it down a little bit, just so we're not doing body damage too, because that is very stressful in the body. And at the same time, it teaches children how to handle stress. So when, boom, you've got a hit of something that's maybe negative, and you've got that stress response, if they know how to breathe it down, they're already ahead of us when we just went with it, right? So the potential there is to teach our kids to breathe down high stress responses, even when in our excitement, to breathe it down, to learn to be okay with that white space again, to learn to be okay not producing. I believe, can stop future addictions. So again, we're optimizing mental health as opposed to working with mental illness.
Wonderful ideas. And I hope that you will share this episode far and wide so that more people can learn to breathe as Pat so passionately wants them to. So Pat, if people want to reach you and to know more about you and your the work that you are doing, where would they find you?
I have a main website. I do so much and try to do a website for all the books, but my main website is that new domain extension called .me. Have you heard of it?
Yes.
So it's Pat Irwin, IRWN, .me.
Okay, IRWIN?
Yeah, PatIrwin.me. And of course, the Teach Me to Breathe website, which you'll post, and the adult one is thewaveriders.com, but from that patirwin.me is links to everything else.
Okay, so we can link to that, and people can reach out to you and find out more if they like, and order your books, and maybe send you some feedback on what you've been talking about.
Yes, and I have I'm very excited about 12 more children's books I have.
Oh, wow.
Bringing in a pack of dogs that I have all border collies, and they're going to bring positive messages, and they'll be on video so that classrooms will be able to bring it in, and we'll tie it into children learning how to write their own story and find their own values. And some of the messages they'll bring in are it's okay to make a mistake, and then all 7 border collies are totally different, although they're all purebred. So I asked the children, which one is the right one? And of course, they come into all sorts of dialogue around, well, there is no right one. They're all good, which is what we want. Right? Yeah. So I'm looking forward to working on those.
Sounds like fun work, too. You look like you're having a great time.
It is. Working for adults, you have to get your P's and your Q's all right. But with children, you just, that's the whole thing, right? Embracing it's okay to make a mistake. It's okay to have fun. It's okay to share information in a colorful way. And I really do enjoy it.
Good. Do you have any last words of advice to the Communication Diva listener?
My biggest thing is be okay achieving, but be okay in the reflective state. Be okay. Again, remember you're valuable as you are, even without a gold star. To just be in that place and loving yourself, loving others when they're not producing, and share that message. Yeah.
Thank you for this time.
Thank you. It's been fun.
There you go. Thanks very much for listening to this podcast episode 77. Hard to believe we're getting close to that 100 mark. We'll have to do something very special. I wanted to also mention that my coaching practice is open, and I have some spaces available if you are interested in working with me one-to-one to figure out what your goals might be, to clarify some things in your mind, if you've got some ideas rumbling around in there, if you just need someone to walk with you, to help you, to inspire you perhaps. And I also have this great new training in neuro-linguistic programming, which helps with habits, breaking habits, helps with phobias, helps to retrain the thought patterns that you might have, the old loops that run through your brain that might be causing you stress and anxiety. So I'm happy to offer that one-to-one coaching to you. You can go to communicationdiva.com and look at the coaching page at the top, and that will give you more information. And if you are interested, just give me an email and we can set up a conversation and see if we would be fit to work together. So there you go. If you're looking for a life coach, I do have just a few spaces available in my busy schedule. I can also do different kinds of coaching, conflict coaching, and spiritual coaching as well. So drop me a line, give me a call, speak to me on SpeakPipe, the little button on the website if you're interested in leaving it by voice, and I would be happy to connect with you. All right, until next time, this is Jenn Swanson. You've been listening to the Communication Diva podcast. Remember to breathe.